I'm gonna pull this all off. New hoodie or new t-shirts. Look at that. I'll have them at Blade Show. All right, let's get into this. How's everybody doing? All right. Oh my gosh. I've been running around like crazy. I literally picked these t-shirts up today from the printer, from the guy, Ethan, Set a Line. His dad is a t-shirt printer, and they hooked me up with printing these for me. Well, they didn't hook me up. I paid, but they did the job for me. Look at that. Damn right I got knives going down the sleeve. And on the t-shirt, it goes down the center. And here we are with another Damn Right I Got Knives interview right before Blade Show that we're all really excited about. Even if you're not going, I have a feeling you're excited. But if you're going, I'm sure you're as excited as me. I get on the plane tomorrow morning at 6 in the morning to fly out there. So you bought an Obsidian S Bowie from my shop. Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying it. All right, let's see. Let's get the man himself on here. Let's find out if he really is the Lord of the Underworld or if he is the 9th planet from the sun. There he is. Let's get him on here. I'm going to try and calm down here. I feel like I've been running around.
Oh, snap. I'm the wrong way around.
I do that often, too.
How do I swap it?
There's a little like...
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there you go. Boom. There it is.
All right. There you are.
How you doing?
Cool. Doing well, man. Thank you for being on here.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me on. I really like the lives you've been doing. I think I told you that like a few weeks back. I was like, I'm digging these. These are good.
Cool.
Yeah,
man.
I like them.
Awesome. I appreciate that you like them. And I got to say thank you to you, because not a lot of people know this, so I'm going to say this now, that you were really understanding. My father was in the hospital, and I had to cancel on you and rearrange, and you were super cool about it and understood. And luckily, my dad's doing much better, and I appreciate you asking about that. And
yeah, no, dude, that's some serious shit. That's #1 priority for sure. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, so I had to suddenly drive out to Arizona and take my dad into the hospital, and he nearly passed away, but luckily he's doing all right and slowly getting better. He has to use a walker and all that, so it's really hectic, but yeah, let's talk about happier thing. I mean, I'm happy he's doing great. I mean,
dude, the picture you sent me was killing me. You're like, he's doing better, and he's like flipping off the camera. I was like, okay, he's doing good, you know? Yeah.
Well, that's my dad's sense of humor. That's where I get it. That's exactly me. Like, you know, anyways, how you doing? Everything going well?
Yeah, it's good. I'm just kind of relaxing. We're just kind of chilling. I've been stitching most of the day. So it's typically like Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah, that's because I hand stitch all my stuff.
Oh, stitching.
So yeah, so like the first couple of days of the week typically are me like doing the fun stuff, which is like stamping, carving, making new designs, and then everything needs to be stitched together by hand. So I just sit there for like 2 days, basically having an emotional breakdown, doing like thousands of stitches by hand.
Oh my gosh.
And then rinse and repeat.
I want to talk about that and take a look at some of that if you want pretty soon here, but let's get past through some of the nitty gritty. Where do you live?
I live in Boston, Massachusetts, like right out the city. Yeah.
Okay. And how old are you?
I am 21.
I love it, man. Everybody, I love that people are so young and take the initiative to start their own things. I mean, I've said it now, I feel like 5 times on these lives. Like Luke, I use Lucas. He's only 25 years old, 26 years old. I mean, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
Super crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you already have your own knife and your own company, and you're 21 years old. How freaking cool is that? I mean, that is so, well, that's super awesome.
It's mainly the help of other people, honestly. You know, people like JK Designs was a huge role in that, you know, and also everyone that just kept buying my crap, you know, so it's everyone that pretty much built it up. What I really love
about this community is how supportive everybody are, and kind of how everybody has a sense of humor and a sense of style. And, you know, I mean, I just like the support everybody gives each other. I think it's really, really positive and really good, and I like that. There is some
Yeah.
competition with the knife making and stuff and flipping. There's obviously competition in that, but in the end, it's pretty supportive, and I really like seeing that.
Yeah, as long as people keep kind of respecting one another, like one of my favorite things to see is makers collaborate, because I think that's definitely going to be the future, right?
Yeah.
Like a good example is JK. Like he makes other people's knives. Like, you know what I mean? Like he could be hogging that market share.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this wouldn't exist, for whatever, like without him, like he got paid for it, but that's still like a pretty ballsy move. There's not other industries where they would do that.
Well,
So,
I mean, but then again, if you think of things like if you think of Dalen, how he was like, I had a machine and I'm a machinist. I wanted to make something. I was going to make some for people. Then he just started making Balisongs. So it's like people who have these
yeah.
machines and run them, a business is like, oh, a new order comes in for a part and they make this thing. So it kind of makes sense that people would have this. Why not make other things for other people? Why not keep it in their, if they're really good at making knives or really good at making an automotive part, they're probably going to make more automotive parts, things like that. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
kind of
It's a
makes
great
sense.
attitude to have.
Yeah. Are there other flippers near you?
Okay, there is a bunch. And actually, the last like 5 Plutos I sold all went within like 30 minutes of my house,
Nice.
which is kind of funny. I'm not going to say which ones, but yeah, like there's a fair amount of flippers, I guess, and I just realized that recently. So who knows? I did bump into a guy once at Market Basket that had a BRS hoodie on, and I was like, "Oh, I like your sweatshirt," and he's like, "Thanks." I have no idea what the fuck it is, and I was like, "Well, I guess he doesn't flip knives." It was like, what are the chances? Like,
Dude, I was in
but yeah.
Staples today, and the guy behind the counter is like, "You're into Balisongs, bro?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I make knives. Check it out." And he flips out a pocket knife. He makes knives, and we get in a whole like 15-minute conversation about Balisongs and knife making, and turn him on to my show and stuff like that. He's going to come by the shop. He's like, "I didn't even know there was like a local thing like that." I'm like, "Well, I mean, there's some of it around." And he's like, "Cool." So made a new friend today at Staples.
There you go, man. You never know where it's going to strike.
And then another great thing that happened like 3 days ago, this kid, out in front of my shop, I have a sandwich board that says Balisongs on it. And this
Yeah.
15-year-old kid was walking by because his mom owns like a little dessert business down the street. He comes walking in. He's like, "You sell Balisongs?" He's like, "Oh my God." And he pulls out his Vicks Balisong and
Oh, there you go.
he's only been flipping for like 3 weeks. He's come now 3 days in a row to my shop just to walk by and talk and like flip for like half an hour on his break. Super cool. 15-year-old
Yeah.
kid, just like, and I'm like, "Well, you should, let your mom know about my shop." He's like, "Oh, no, no, no. I don't want, she might not like me talking to an older guy." I'm like, "I'm sure if your mom meets me."
About sharp knives, you know what I mean? Like it's already on the fence.
Yeah.
I
Most of
go
the
meet
time my
Paul and I flip
parents,
knives on my break.
yeah, yeah. Parents just need to meet who their kids are introduced to. They'll know instantly if they're too creepy, you know?
Yeah. My
Um,
favorite thing is the Blade Show parents, right? Have you seen the lives? Like the moms will be going nuts for the kids flipping knives. It's like
yeah.
my favorite thing. I've never been, but I love that.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing to see parents that take their kids to Blade Show. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. What was your first knife, or maybe it was a Balisong, or do you have a memory of an early time that you got into knives as a kid, maybe?
So ironically, I wasn't a big knife guy. I would be like, just buy a fucking $10 buck and call it a day. But I got into Bally's. Actually, I can grab it. It's right here. Yeah, I do. Boom. So my brother bought this at a gun show. I don't know how many years ago. I have to. There you go. He bought this. I think it's dubbed the finger crusher because it's a really like heavy, just imported Bally.
Yeah.
Um, but I had this for a while, and I tortured my family with the sound of this clacking around for like quite a few months, and then they hid it from me when I was really young. And then my cousin sent me a video of him flipping one, and I was like, dude, I need to get back into Bally's. So I was like 16, and I bought a BM51, and that was like my first like good knife, and that was like a big purchase,
You've been flipping
at the
a
time.
while since you were, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah, like 16, but like I didn't really start flipping until I got a rep, pretty much. you know. And then I kind of got more into it once I got my replicant. I'm still pretty trash at flipping because I don't really flip a ton, but yeah, I've been messing around with them for a couple years now.
Flipping's like golf in that certain way. It's like, you know, oh,
Yeah.
maybe, no, it's not. I mean, in some ways it is because it's you
Yeah, people
with
get pretty
yourself,
hooked,
and you
man.
can have a really good time
Paul,
or a really bad time.
you got a lot of knives behind you, man.
Yeah, I practice a lot, and I mean, I've only been flipping for a couple of years, but I've been collecting knives for a long time, and I love it, man. It's fun. I have a great time learning from everybody. And I've impressed myself with where I am at this point, but I still have a long ways to go. So you were flipping before, what made you start making leather sheaths?
So I think it was well around 2018 is when I started making them. But my good friend Eli Rodriguez was like literally like one of the first people to buy my screws back in the day because that's how I started. I was making pivot screws. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that because I don't really post too much about them. I usually auction them off on my stories when I'm done making them. But he was like a good friend of mine. Ironically, he lost his package. It was like a pain in the ass to get him his like package. But he also had a sheath that got scammed. I'm not going to say the maker, but there was a certain maker that just kind of like went off the rails. He was taking on tons of orders, but not making anything. So he never got his sheath. And I was like, I want one. And he's like, well, I don't fucking know what to tell you. So I was like, I guess I'll just go buy some tools. It'll probably be cheaper. It wasn't. It was not cheaper. It cost me a lot of money. And I started just making stuff for fun. And then I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. And also a lot of leather work is like very traditional. So like there was people making bally slips and stuff like that, but it would have like a fucking horse's face carved on it. I'm like, I don't want like a horse's face on my knife sheath, you know? I want like skulls or like something cool.
So I noticed
I was doing like
a bally slip, but do you still call it?
There's like all these different names. I don't know. Like I called them cocoons at first, just to be like kind of punny, I guess.
Yeah, I've heard.
And then people were like,
"There's foldovers or the different ways you do it."
There's no real name for them, really. I think they're technically like in the leather industry would be a slip because you just kind of slip it in. A sheath is usually for like a knife, I guess, like the blade goes in. I don't know.
Kind of.
Yeah, but I just call them like cocoons / sheaths, and that's what I call them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let me get this right. You were making screws first, like pivot screws.
Yeah.
And pivots as well, or just the pivot screws?
Just the screw. Yeah, just the screw.
And how were you making those?
By hand. That's how I still do them. Yeah, it's all jewelry tools.
Oh wow, man, that's so cool. And did you make anything
else before you started making that? I've always like kind of just made stuff and fucked around, you know, but that was like the first time I did anything specifically for knives. Yeah.
Okay. But have you made jewelry and rings, things like that?
No, it just started with like, I saw a video of someone sharpening a blade for like an oscillating saw, and she had this like really small file, and I was like, I bet I could put lines in a screw and be like the coolest kid on the block. So I put a bunch of lines in some screws, posted on Instagram, and people were like, I want those. So I was like, okay. So I made like 3 or 4 sets, and then I just kept reinvesting the money into new tools and different stuff to make different designs. Yeah.
That's so weird to think that somebody could sell screws.
Dude, it's like, it's pretty funny. Like I always tell people, I'm like, everything I have now was built off of screw money. Like literally, like I didn't work a day job or anything. Like everything I have now, all my equipment, all the money I used to get my knives machined, it's all started with pivot screws and a file.
That's crazy. I love that. Do you do other mod work, or anything like? Did you ever get into anodizing or do mod work for people?
No, I never did any of that stuff. I've always done like the accessory side of things. The closest thing would be like Alpha Beast inlays maybe, but I didn't want to take people's knives. I was like, I don't trust the post office or like myself to take someone's knife. So I basically made them in a way where you can install them yourself. And I made like a lot of Alpha Beast inlays. And I would say like 90% were successful going in. And if they broke, I'd replace them. But then I stopped because the tolerancing just became a shit show. Like there was like 15 different alpha beasts, it felt like, with different sized holes, and I just gave up on trying to keep track of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where do you source your materials from?
Leather-wise?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I would say 90% of it is from Italy.
Oh, okay.
I'm a big fan of a lot of the Italian hides. They're typically a little fattier, a little oilier, so they last longer. You don't have to condition them as often. So if you see any like my pre-dyed stuff, it's almost all from Italy. And then all of my vegetable tan, which is like anything with stamping on it, right, and a lot of color, that starts off plain beige. And then I have to like hand dye it with an airbrush or paint it. That's all from Herman Oak, and that's a U.S. tanned leather. So U.S. and Italy pretty much exclusively.
So you probably had to go do a fair amount of experimenting to get to a point where you were, because your stuff is good quality. That's what I always notice. I pick it up and it's like solid, feels really good. I've seen several different ones, and your stuff is done really well. So
It took a lot of time. Yeah, like I did a lot of vegetable tan stuff with stamping, and that's how I got my notoriety, was like stamping patterns that, like I said, just weren't like a horse's fucking face, you know? So I yeah, but then after that I was like, I also want to make really good quality, nicer stuff that's pre-dyed and pre-finished. So I went around a lot, and a lot of companies use like really thin leather. And also, like, I've had people leave reviews being like, oh, it's not cheap leather because it's nice and thick. There really isn't a price difference between thickness of leather. Like, let me just make that clear. Like, really thick leather really isn't much more expensive than thin leather, or vice versa. Sometimes it's actually more expensive for thinner leather because they have to split it. It's just getting the right temper and the right thickness. And the hard part is finding the thickness. A lot of leathers for like wallets and stuff like that, and it's very thin. And yeah, you can make something that's a little bit tighter in the pocket, but after 7, 8 months, it's going to wear out on you, and it's just not going to fit properly. So that was the main thing I kind of,
all the time.
yeah, exactly. And that was the main thing I kind of like, not nailed down, because you can always get better. There's always a little bit better. And I'm always like tweaking designs and trying different methods to get things a little bit better. But my stuff wears in really well. And like so far, they just hold up great. And they're a little bit bigger than they can be. But knives are so different these days. Like an Orca is a fat ass knife. The Pluto is a really fat knife. But, you know, a Squid Industry Nami is like pretty thin. So, you know, you're kind of playing a juggling game with different sizes.
Right.
So you got to get that good middle ground.
So can you take us through, do you have your product lineup there easily near you?
Not really.
That's okay. Well,
Yeah,
so you
I don't keep inventory here.
So because what you call the fold over is the ones I like, where there's no pocket clip. It doesn't have.
Actually, I have one over here.
I have one of those here somewhere too.
Yeah, let me see. I have one here.
Yeah, I have a JK one.
Oh,
so
wait.
This is the fold over. I like these personally.
Yeah, those are getting really popular, I've noticed.
I like
have
them
one here
because
that's a blend
for
of shark.
California, you can throw it in your bag. I don't need a pocket clip usually because I'm not,
Yeah.
wearing my Balisong showing,
Yeah, these were designed to be as fast as possible to make with no clip. And so you can really cut down on the bulk of a sheath by making it folded over, right? Because that stitch line takes up quite a bit of space. So that kind of fold right there flexes really nicely.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I went with this. But the most popular by far to this day is still the 2.0, I guess, cocoon, which is the more rounded version of my original squared off one with a pocket clip. This is still
Really, that's the most popular.
Yeah, I've sold the most, and I'm still selling the most. And then I have I have the burrito, and that's probably the second most popular. That's the one with the pocket clip offset, and it's a folded over design, and that one's pretty popular too.
What do you call the one you just showed us?
This one, I just call this like the normal cocoon. Yeah.
Cocoon, okay. And then the burrito, and then a fold over.
Yeah, I gotta get like a good naming. I might just do like a numbered system. I don't know. It's kind of like a terrible way of going about it, honestly, but I don't know. It's just the way it is right now.
Well, I think people have probably gotten used to it. I'm getting used to it. When I first was buying them or asking you about them or talking to people about them, I was always like, why does he call it a fold over? And then it made sense. You fold it and stitch it,
Yeah, and the burrito was like, that's what everyone called them back in the day, was the burrito. Like I made it, and that silhouette is like super common too. That's one thing with leathercraft. Like, go look at like leather wallet makers, they're all the same. It's like really interesting. They sell their patterns to other makers. Like there really isn't like a trademarked kind of design when it comes to leatherworking. It's really peculiar. Like the hoe industry is just everyone using everyone else's shit. So, so that pattern itself was inspired by like a knife one, and people make those for pens. It's super simple. You just fold it over, and you have a clip on the side, and it's just one piece.
So you're in your shop right now, right?
Yeah.
And that's in your house, in your garage, or?
It's a one-car garage that was converted as a welding shop like 6 years ago, and then now is being converted to leather and hopefully machining at some point.
Oh, cool. So you got some plans with that. And is
Yeah.
it like right behind you is where you do most of your majority of your work?
Yeah, this is where most of like the stamping and dyeing. I have like my smaller containers of dye and my airbrush containers and some of my tools. It's nothing too crazy, honestly. I do, I keep it pretty lean just
And
for space.
what kind of stitching machine do you have?
Yeah, so you make the holes. So you can't like run a needle like through leather with your own fingers, right? Like normal stitching. So to make the holes to get your stitching in, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, and everyone does it differently. It depends if you're doing like European, more Japanese style. What I like to use, and it's kind of like the meta, I guess, these days, is pricking irons. So it's a real beefed up fork, basically, and you stab it into the leather with a hammer, and it gives you all your holes. And then from there, you have two needles, and you lock your sheath in a stitching pony, which is basically just a clamp. It just holds your sheath right there. And then you just keep weaving your needles through the holes back and forth, creating individual knots through each hole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Takes a while to make one, right?
That's the majority. Like what you're paying for is the burnishing of the edges. So like every edge goes to like a multi-stage process to seal up the edge and make it glossy and smooth. That takes a while because I rub it with a stick for like 20 minutes. Yeah. So I have to go in and rub it with a hardwood stick, and then I rub wax into it, then I dye the edge, and I use different like plant Tolkanol is a plant-based gel that kind of gives it a sheen, and that's what just seals up the edge, and it prevents moisture from getting into the grain, and it just kind of finishes the project off. So that takes quite a while, and then stitching is like just the bane of my existence. Takes forever.
We've talked about doing a shop Soet one. I'm just like I'm making t-shirts, I'm doing other things, and then it's like, will the sheath really sell at Shop Soet, or do people like want to buy them more from the maker? I don't know. So I'm still contemplating like I want to do like a really cool design. I think the way I could make it work is what is on there, the design that would be on there, rather than
that's what it's all about.
A logo or something. I think I'd rather do something more designed based or something. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. We can do some cool stamps. Yeah, definitely.
So then you eventually were like, I don't know the timeline. You've done this now for a while. When did you start? Did it go, then I want to make my own knife idea? Or how did that come?
It kind of started, well, I started doing a lot of like leather work for other people. And at that point, I was like, okay, like this is interesting. And I also like didn't really think you could do a full-time job making knives. Like I didn't think it would be possible, honestly. So I think it was around 2 years ago, I decided that I would be like, you know what, maybe I'll make a knife. I already knew how to use CAD roughly. So I started just designing in CAD. And then eventually from working with Julian at JK Designs and having a good relationship with him and, doing work for him and being like, you know what, I guess I'll just give you your money back, and a lot more, make me a knife, right? Like, how would it work? So he gave me some numbers and I was like, I can work with that, because the goal was to buy a machine and put it in my shop. But then I had all sorts of fucking issues with my floor. So I was like, I guess I'm not just going to like let the money sit there, right? So I'll put it towards actually making something. So we got talking and I sent him over some files. They were kind of a wreck. Shout out to Julian for helping me. And, got the first prototype made, had to make some changes. And then, we had the first 15 Plutos getting made.
And how many did you make of the V1?
Just 15. Yeah.
There was only 15 of the V1.
Yeah. They're like the original ones. You have a V2, which was like the second production run. But yeah, we did a very small batch of just 15 because A, expensive, and also I just wanted to like, I've never made a knife before, right? So I was like, I don't know what the hell, like, like how it's gonna be received. So I was like, can we do 15? And we worked the deal, and we just ran 15. And I'm glad I did that because I got so much feedback on the first
Yeah.
ones. Like they were really handle heavy. And I like more handle heavy knives, but people like lighter weight, more neutral stuff. So for the second run, I like redesigned the blade a little bit to bring some weight towards the
That
blade.
this guy,
Um,
the V2.
yeah, that's a V2. Yeah. The hardest part about the Pluto is it's handle heavy, but it's not really the handles that are the problem, it's the blade. It's just too light. It has so much milling on the blade and it's only 25 thou thick. It's really hard to get enough weight. So on the V2, because the first run we like changed the blade up and it was still a little bit blade light. Um, but for the V2, we went in and like actually started milling out of the handles. I redesigned the spacers to be like a lot better looking. And this one flips nice. I like it. It's
Yeah,
definitely a
there's a
handle
lot of
bias knife for
space I
sure.
noticed, like for that blade
Yeah,
in there.
that stayed the same between the V1 and the V2s, actually. What
Oh,
we did
really?
is we dropped the whole pattern. Yeah, so this piece, all like these pockets are deeper in the V2s. And then the actual spacers are like, I think like 35% lighter. They're all skeletonized on the inside, but they actually look larger, so they look a lot better.
Yeah, the V1, I had an opportunity to do a trade and get the V1, and I passed on it just based on the weight. And then when I was told this was 4.5, I think it is, right? If I'm
Yeah,
correct. I love that weight. I was like all about it. And then you and I were talking, and man, I love the look of this, the bronze with the black. This is just looks so good to me. And that
yeah,
I
it's all
really
JK. He does all the anodizing, so
I I really love that this edge. I don't know, like that look right there.
yeah,
There's that top edge right here on both sides. It just looks really good to me.
yeah. The
And how
blade was
fat
cool. Like
it is. What's that?
the blade was like it's my favorite part of the Pluto, I think, but it's also the worst part because it takes forever to sharpen. And like I said, it's so hard to get weight on that blade. It's just so much milling on there. Um, but yeah, it's a cool looking blade. Like it's different. It's a very different knife from like how it handles. It's very like more old fashioned, but and the whole look is just like super different. Especially that blade. It's like that gut hook and it's kind of flowy at the same time.
So you designed it. Then you got feedback from the community. JK helped you as well along the way, obviously. Um, how much of it do you do after he's done machining it? Does it just come to you finished, or do you decide the anode? Do you do any of that stuff yourself? Do you assemble it? Do you?
Yeah. So right now, I actually pay him to do all the anodizing and stuff like that. So it comes to me like anodized or bead blasted, right? So I pick the colors and stuff. I do that because I just know what's going to be done right. You know what I mean? Like it's less money in my pocket, but like it's going to get done right, and I know it's going to look good. And I'm also like too busy stitching all day long.
Right, yeah.
So and like and having enough room to do it. I want to bring more in house eventually, but I want to make sure it's being done right. So yeah, I have him do that. When it gets here, there's no edge or anything, so I have to tune them, and that can be a little bit tricky. The V1s are really hard to tune because the blades were like a little bit too thin for the bushings I was using, so I had to lap like a lot of material. So those were super hard to tune. The V2s came out pretty nice for just being a shell milled blade. They're not like super duper flat. But they came out a lot better. So tuning isn't terrible, and then I have to sharpen them. And sharpening is a freaking ordeal with the Pluto because that recurve just like hates me. It just takes forever.
No, it's interesting to see the different. There's people who make, don't, like stitch steel or whatever, that level of making, to where he does it all by hand. To people use CNC machines, to the level where you're at, where you pay somebody else, you get them in, you tune them, put an edge on them, but yet you're still involved heavily in the process. So yeah, I mean, it's cool because you care about your product. So you're having somebody that's really great at making these things and working with them.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool. I like this knife a lot. The more I flip it, the more I like it. I like that it's a bit more squared off. It's not rounded. I just feel like that adds that extra grip. Yeah. And it cut me really good right away because it was sharp as heck when you sent it to me. It actually
Yeah,
poked me
I gotta start
today
sharpening them
when I was flipping it.
as far. Yeah, I bring them pretty far out there. Like they're pretty dang sharp. The first like couple I did were like I brought them to 1600, and I was like, why am I doing this? Like some poor kid has to flip this thing, you know? So I stopped doing that. You know, it's a little bit too sharp. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, there you can make a knife really sharp. There's
yeah,
like what was that? The Telesco I just got not so long ago was so freaking sharp. It was insane. Do you
yeah.
still
I think he's the Wicked Edge too. The Wicked Edge is just a fucking monster. Like it's slow, but
uh,
it gives a crazy good edge. The Wicked Edge, it's
the
crazy.
an appropriate name for that thing?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Do you still flip a lot?
Not as much as I used to. Like I was just yeah, like I just casually like I'm always flipping, but like I'm not learning new tricks, I would say as much, you know. I still flip, but it's just the same stuff for the most part. I'm not like sitting over my bed obsessing over new tricks because I know enough where I can gauge a knife for the most part. And also just like don't really have the time just to sit there for like 3 hours flipping a knife. And I also really can't like fuck up my hands too bad. I remember I took on like a pretty big job and then I like sliced my finger open my orca I just got and I couldn't stitch because like my freaking pointer finger was all band-aided up. I couldn't touch anything.
Oh man.
So that was a nightmare. Yeah.
And what about? Do you have a collection? Do you collect a fair amount?
Not really. I got like a Kukri, Alpha Beast, a Chab. They're both obliterated because I just dropped them on the concrete all day. I have my first replicant that's somewhere in pieces. I don't know why. It's just I keep breaking it. And then I have a Gigas that's been getting pretty abused recently. I got my number 51 Orca, and then I have, I guess, my first prototype Pluto that has been getting a good beating, and then I have like my production one that I decided to keep as well.
And is the production a V2?
Yeah, yeah. I have the first ever like prototype, but like the original blade that's like pretty freaking whacked out. Um,
Oh yeah,
and then
that's really different. Way more of a
yeah,
squiggly line going on there.
yeah, the main problem was the sharpening. So I used to sharpen, I was going to sharpen these on a Tormac water wheel. That's like what Julian uses with like a recurve jig. So you have to sharpen on the edge of the stone. And like, terrible idea. I sharpened the first prototype and like botched that, which was like super depressing because that blade cost me a crap ton of money to make. And then I bought a Wicked Edge. I was like, I'm done. I'll just sit there and just freaking, you know, just do it by hand. I'm not doing it. Yeah, like not worth it. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite knife that you like?
Not really. I flop around because there's so many different balances, right? I would say the knife I flip the most is probably my Chab because my beater. So like if I'm just messing around with that, I can flip fine, but then maybe I'll like swap to you know, my Gigas and flip that for a bit, and then like my Orca will feel weird because my Orca is kind of blade heavy because of the finish I did on the handles. But right now, I would say like my favorite knife is probably my Gigas. I always just like the Gigas. It's just like every time I flip my Gigas, I just get reminded of Guy, and he's just such a nice dude. So I just like flipping that knife.
Would you say? I mean, I know you're not working on new tricks. Do you have a trick that you tend to do a lot? Like, are you a fanning type of person who just sits there and fans a lot? Do you tend to do rollovers? You know.
Yeah, I do a lot of like just like really short stuff. I would say like the Z choker is probably like the one I'm doing the most these days. I'll just sit there and like roll around, and then I think that's the Z choker, right? The I'm trying to get in frame that one. I think that's the Z
Yeah.
choker, I think, but I do that a lot now. It's a simple one. It looks flashy, and I just kind of plink around
The
doing
Z
that. That's
choker
probably what I do the
pain in
most.
the ass for me. I can do it, but it's like I know the choker. I do that all day long, but the Z choker is just like for some reason it falling between my fingers and then getting that to always work in a nice looking way is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I could never get it, and then I was like just super drunk camping, honestly, and I had my replicant, and I was just like staring at the fire, and I was like messing around, and I just did it, and I was like, oh my God, like I was like, this is perfect, and then since then I just been doing it, yeah.
Do you have other hobbies that you do that you're into?
Not too much these days. I was really into airsoft for a while. I did a lot of that. I used to work on the guns a lot back in the day. Also just shooting guns. I like shooting trap a lot, so try and do that more now that the weather's a bit nicer.
All right.
But right now, in the past 4 years, it's just been work nonstop pretty much. So yeah.
And do you like, does your family or your close friends, are they supportive of what you do? Are they into it? Like, do they see that? Do they understand what the hell you're doing with your life?
Yeah, no, my family's super supportive. They're great. Yeah, definitely. Like they're like, do it up. I think my dad's just confused sometimes. Like at first he was like, what is this shit? He's like, the knives are kind of funny because I just like was doing them, and I'm the youngest of four. I think my brother was like this box game. He's like, "Where are all these freaking blades?" And I was like, "Oh, I got my knife made from Julian." He's like, "When the hell did you start making a knife?" I was like, "Dude, it just happened. Like, it just kind of happened, dude." And yeah, my friends are cool about it. Actually, like two of my really good friends, when I first started doing it, like I don't know, like it was still pretty new, and like I don't know, I don't really talk about something unless it's like done, right? Like I'm not gonna like talk about a product or like a project unless I have it in hand usually, and it's like pretty set in stone. So I wouldn't really talk about what I was doing too much. And two of my friends thought I was like legitimately a drug dealer. They were like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, like what is it?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. Don't worry about it." And they were like, "Yeah." They're like, "Are you selling crack?" I was like, "No, I'm making screws." Like, but
Like you're doing
yeah,
what?
exactly. Yeah.
God. Do you have any pets or anything? Any animals?
Yeah, I have my infamous chinchillas. They're not as often on my Instagram, but yeah, I got two chinchillas.
Oh, nice.
So
I don't know if I've ever
yeah.
noticed them on your Instagram. I'm sorry.
I haven't posted them in a while. Yeah, they're just kind of like more towards the summer. I usually will because they're like a lot less grumpy. During the winter, they just like, I don't know, mine are weird. Like most chinchillas don't, but mine during the winter just kind of like hibernate. Like they shouldn't do that. They're domesticated, but they just like sleep all day during the winter. They don't want to play or anything.
Uh,
But they're a little less grumpy right now. So yeah, I'll start posting pictures again.
what about food and drink that keeps you going?
Whatever I can get a hold of, alcohol wise. I guess ciders. Yeah, we'll just get into it. I guess. Yeah.
You like ciders, huh?
Yeah, just a lot of long nights, drinking cider and just talking shit on Snapchat to my friends. They're like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, got 35 more things to stitch. That's like 3,000 stitches. I'm just losing my mind slowly, but everything's kosher, man.
So you're not going to Blade Show East, right?
No, yeah, I haven't been to one, and no plans right now to go to one.
What about Blade Show West or anything like that? No, nothing boiling.
Yeah, nothing crazy. I want to go once I have like maybe some knives to bring, or something. But right now, I just make stuff for people that usually go, and I save the money to keep putting back into the business. It's expensive to travel, so.
What about any upcoming designs or ideas or things you got cooking? Whether it's knives or sheaths or.
Yeah, the leather stuff's always kind of growing. I'm actually working on doing some like DIY kits. I'm a big fan of like people trying to just work with their hands or, just do something, right? Instead of just like sitting on your phone all day or like playing Xbox. So I'm working on some kits. It's been challenging to like, how much do I let the person do, right? And, like price range wise, but I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to include and how I'm going to make everything like this, the holes, and I'm going to do a video probably, and I'm going to try selling kits at some point. I'm also working on a few new like carry designs and also working with some new suppliers. Like everyone wants titanium pocket clips like crazy. So it took me like literally 2 years of hunting around, and I finally found a guy that has like prices like reasonable enough where I can actually like resell them. So just today I ordered like a substantial amount of titanium pocket clips. So
that will go
those will
on
be
the sheath.
Yeah. Instead of like the normal spring clips
Right.
that people aren't as big a fan of. And it's funny too, right? So like the only clip that I know of that will stay on your pocket and you can just yank the knife out immediately with is an Alta clip, which is this one. And it literally is a clamp. Um, and these guys are really cool people, but it's huge. It like sits off the sheath like a half an inch
Okay.
almost. And that's not like that appealing to me. And the titanium ones have a lot of gripping power, but it's still gonna pull off your pocket. So I just use like these spring clips because they're super springy and they don't lose their retention.
Right.
And it just keeps it on your pocket, you know, and keeps it accessible. And all of my designs have areas to push off of. So with these, you can just grab the handles and then push off with your finger and thumb to get the knife going.
Right.
Same with the burrito that you can kick off the clip area. So that's why I've been using these for so long. But if people want to spend an extra like $15 for a titanium clip that doesn't really do much different of a job, I will carry them.
All right.
Yeah.
Um, what's your feeling about the growth of the Balisong community? Do you notice it growing in your sales as a company, or do you feel like it's growing in every aspect? Or
Yeah, it's growing all around for sure. Yeah, like there's just so many new faces constantly. You know, I'm still very small. Um, but yeah, I think it's great. Like the community's growing in a good direction. I think it's maybe a hot take, but I think trainers and just maybe like sub $400 knives, I think are gonna kind of take over eventually, honestly, because I think it's just turning into like Kadama, honestly, where people just are getting more focused about the manipulation of the knife than really like the clout of the knife.
right.
And I think that's cool because, dude, people are getting cracked out with flipping these days. It's nuts.
It's
Like
pretty,
people are so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So I think it's going great. I'm interested to see how makers and even like more mid-tech makers start to adjust to maybe the market moving more towards just like performance-based knives.
and your plan is to keep going with your products. And is there any, do you see, what do you see in 5 to 10 years for yourself, or do you think like that?
Yeah, I like I try to set like some things that I want to do, but you also have to just kind of go through life. You can't over plan, or I think you just kind of lose like the spontaneousness of this living. You know what I mean? So I don't really like give a super fixed schedule of what I'm gonna try to make. Like knife wise, I'm always working to like get better or design something new because it's like not my strong suit is like making knives, right? Like this is what I've been doing the longest. Um, but yeah, leather wise, the same stuff. Mainly trying to just scale it, right? Like how am I gonna start doing more knives? I want to try machining as well, but also still produce leather products because now it's becoming more for makers. Like there's a bunch of makers that are coming on the spot that want my product with their stuff, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do that many, sheaths and still like hand stitch them unless I want to swap to machine stitching, and I don't really want to do that. So right now, it's just the growing pains of like either hiring someone. Like I got a friend that helps me out when shit gets like really busy. Like my BRS job, I cranked that out in like a day and a half with them. Um, but yeah, so like it just kind of, I don't know. I'm just doing knives. My goal is to get machines and start doing my own stuff eventually. But right now, space is my biggest issue.
Something I
So
forgot
yeah.
to ask or bring up that's occurring to me now. Like, did you go to do any schooling? Not necessarily for this, maybe for this, but are you in school? Did you go to school?
No, I didn't go to college. I started when I was 18. So I was kind of like, yeah, I knew I didn't want to like go to school to begin with. I wanted to like, maybe start a business and then started filing screws one day, Paul, and it just kind of
And what
just
about,
kind of happened, man.
is there any sort of influence you found online? Like a lot of people would watch certain shows or certain other makers that were like, just to get some ideas of how to run their deal. Or was there any, or anybody, your neighbor could, or whoever, any influencers to you or people that supported you as you were getting going?
Screw wise, no, because that's just like really weird stuff. But the leather, obviously. Yeah, YouTube. Like I think I checked out Stock and Barrel, I think was his name. He had YouTube videos back in the day, and that kind of helped just like figure out the difference between some of my leathers and stuff like that. Um, but a lot of it was just trial and error. Like I got lucky on some stuff. Like there's still a few things that I use to this day that I first bought when I first started. I just got lucky. Like John James needles. This might sound weird, but like your needles are make or break because you're spending like a good half of your day holding those little stupid things, weaving between leather and like a good quality needle. So I got like the best needles out of the gate. I got lucky. But besides that, no, like my products have changed like crazy because I didn't have anything to go off of. There's no like checklist, and every maker is different. Like some people don't punch their holes all the way through. They just mark them and then they use like a stitching awl to poke them out by hand. And then some people use a drill press to make their holes. Everyone just does it differently, like including how they dye their leather to how they stamp it. You just have to find what works for you and just kind of like struggle through, I guess.
Well, let's see. Is there a knife out there that you really want or really like that you're like oh God, I'd really love to own one of those sometime?
Yeah, probably a monarch. I know it's kind of like a super generic answer, but ironically, like I think probably when I first started doing leatherworking, the whole joke I had with my buddy Eli was I was like, if I can sell enough keychains to buy a monarch, like that would be really funny. But like eventually I started working with JK and doing stuff with him, and I still never got one. Like I got an orca, but I don't know. I just like haven't picked one up. I gotta like hit him up maybe and be like, give me a freaking monarch, you know?
So you
But I don't know what to wait for.
keychains. Were you making keychains for a while?
Yeah, when I first started, I did a whole bunch of crap. I did a bunch of keychains. I made I did wallets for a while actually, but I just hated making wallets because to be honest with you guys, like a $20 wallet from like Marshalls is going to be way more efficient than like a handmade wallet because like it's just like the leather's super thin. You can just stuff it full of cards, but to make things by hand, you know, like the leather's a little bit thicker. They're typically a little more minimalist. Most people aren't like carrying like three cards and like perfectly folded bills in their wallet, right?
Right.
You just want to like shove a bunch of crap in it, shove your money in it, and call it a day. So I was like,
That's
this is not what I would use. So I didn't make them anymore. If I don't use it, I'm not going to make it.
um what other makers or flip do you want to give a shout out to any other makers or flippers, or is there anybody else that makes sheaths that you admire, that you see their work, leather work in the community that you appreciate? Or are you more just, not to put you on the spot with an answer, or are you just more so busy with your stuff that it's hard for you to, or is there somebody else that you really like their work?
Yeah, Tyler's really good. I forget his last name, but he's doing like a lot of like hand carving. He did work for Jimpy Designs, and he's killing it. Like every time I see him doing something hand carved, I'm just like, dude, just keep on trucking away, dude. He's just killing it. Like he did a Master Chief one that just looks like stellar. He did one of a soldier recently that looked amazing. So he's always just killing it. Um, my buddy All Good Leather Co. Shout out to Neil. If I ever get married, Neil's going to my wedding. Actually, I wanted to marry me. He's like the nicest guy ever. My buddy like wanted something made, and that's how I found him because he makes stamps and stuff. And yeah, he's just like the nicest guy ever. So he does all like my stamps with his laser, and that's how we do all my custom stamps. And he used to do bally slips too. When I first started, he would be on Etsy as well. And I remember I like hit him up. I was like, dude, these are like freaking stellar. So like a few years later, we're both working together now, and he's just like the nicest guy and does great work. So check out All Good Leather Co. He's just like the nicest guy ever.
Yeah, I remember, this is a funny thing. I remember before I kind of knew who you were, I was looking on Etsy one time and I was like, what are these bullshit leather cases? You know, what's this Area 51? I mean, I'm teasing. I didn't think that, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just looking around at Etsy because you never know what you're going to find. So I was like searching like Balisongs. And I was like, what's, you know, I never expect to find anything good on Etsy. I don't know why. I always think it's like, just not. And so like I remember like looking at, and then I remember going, oh wow, this work looks really good. And then when I got more in the Balisong community, your name kept coming up, and I was like, oh, he's actually a legitimate, you know, people appreciate his work,
Yeah.
you know. And so it kind of came back around. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this guy from Etsy, because I was really curious if his stuff was any good or not, and I didn't buy it because I had no idea whether it was or wasn't, you know.
Yeah, most of my stuff is still from Instagram, but that was a big thing I did back in the day too, is everyone would be like, DM me, and I would be like, I don't know who the hell this guy is, right? So I was like, I'll just make like the easiest storefront possible, which is Etsy. And I've been like on the fence about leaving them as a platform, but like there's some things on there that are like pretty nice to have. So I've stayed on there
Yeah.
reluctantly. But yeah, it kind of works out well having like the links and stuff like that, and then just having it there to purchase. I don't do a lot of pre-made stuff anymore. I still just do a lot of like custom orders. Like just DM me and I'll be like, let's freaking get it made in a couple of days and I'll ship it out to you.
All right. Do you have a good knife story or anything you want to tell us? You got something you got anything you can think of, like something bloody or worst cut, something like you found a knife in a park, I don't know, something. Can you?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. Cuts wise, like I've had some bad cuts. I think we all have at this point. Oh no, I got a chab, and the first 5 minutes I did like an aerial to Chaplin and just Chaplin my finger with it like immediately, and that was pretty gnarly. Yeah, that was probably the worst one I ever had.
I
Was
wanted
just catching
something
it like
like
that.
you stitched your finger to one of your cases or something.
Nothing too crazy. I've been pretty lucky. I've never like injured myself when leatherworking, which is tricky because like I'll use a skiving knife, which is like a super sharp putty knife kind of, and I use that to like thin out my leather. So I like cut it in half slowly, and that's super sharp. I've never injured myself when working. I've stabbed myself with needles, um, but that's not too bad, you know. So yeah, I'm lucky. I haven't got injured too bad yet.
Clockwork says your face reveal.
Yeah, I went live before, like way back, but I just stopped doing it. Like, you know, I just had bad reception, and most of the time, you know, I just want to like listen to music and like get through the day, I guess. So, yeah.
What were you saying? Something made me think. Oh, one of my a bad cut I got really bad was doing some woodwork, and it's not even. You think of like getting injured, which I've come close to getting injured from electric tools, but one of the worst cuts I ever got was from a chisel. I was chiseling some wood, some bark off of
Yeah.
a thing, and it was a really sharp chisel. Because if you work in a wood shop, the chisels are sharp, like very
Yeah.
sharp,
Yeah.
and it just slipped and stuck right in. I mean, it was so close to my wrist, but it stuck right here in the meat of my hand. Just,
Oh,
I
Jesus.
still have a scar if you see it the right way, just like super, like gnarly cut in my hand. I was like, oh, man. And I
Yeah,
taped it
that's a
all up.
fatty area too.
What's that?
That's a fatty area too. Like that's right there.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah. Oh, man. And I lied to my friend who was my boss at the time. And I was like, oh, yeah, I cut myself lifting something at home. And then, like 2 weeks later, he gives me my paycheck, and he was like, "Next time you hurt yourself at work, tell me." He was like mad that I was like, "Don't lie to me."
Yeah.
That's when I worked at a wood shop up in Portland. But, anyways, the Q&A. Let's do it. Let's see what people have to say. Let's get some questions.
How long did you work at a wood shop for?
About 3 years, off and on. I still do
Yeah.
woodwork all the time. I did in my shop, all the woodwork in my shop I did. I make tables for people. They'll hire me and I'll commission me to do woodwork. I'm like,
Yeah.
I have like 6 different things I do in my life to make it work. And it's kind of fun because one moment I'm making a table, the next moment I'm going to a knife trade show, or, you know, or I'm selling vinyl or repairing somebody's turntable, or, you know, whatever. I do all
Yeah.
kinds of things. It's kind of,
Oh, that's awesome. Staying diverse and staying busy, man. That's
yeah,
what it's all about.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of one of those people that figures things out. You know, if there's a broken thing, I'll figure out how to fix it. Or, you know, that's why I like tinkering with my knives when they come in. Some knives I don't take apart. Others, if there's a need to, I like to take it apart and work on it myself. Yours, I have not taken apart yet. So it's been holding up really good.
Yeah. If it like you don't really need to take them apart fully to clean them, right? Because the tolerances are so tight on them. Like dirt isn't really like it would be like dirty lube, but just like flood it out with lube, like DCB says.
Yeah.
Work it out, wipe it off, do it once or twice, and you're fine. Taking
Yeah.
them apart, shit just gets super tricky.
I use like sometimes a spray CLP, or you know, that stuff for cleaning like guns and stuff. If you spray
Yeah,
that in there, it'll get out stuff that's in there. But yeah, I don't really. I oil my knives, put some lube in them, but I don't fuss with them a lot, you know, unless it needs it. But and if it needs it, like mostly the knives I work on are like reps, things that are like, you know, things like reps. Replicants always like want to be taken apart and put back
that's like
together.
the worst knife to take apart, though. It's like it's just the worst. They
Oh,
like
it's a pain
never
in
go
the
back
ass.
together properly.
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at it. I gotta say. Being a leather worker, got to say, Dylan, all the other leather workers in the community are all super supportive and helpful. Yeah, awesome.
Oh yeah, man. That's what it's all about.
See if I missed any other question here.
Yeah, people love leather, man. You know, it's definitely like a super nichey thing on top of like a niche community too, and it's pretty interesting. I've been surprised of like how many I was actually able to sell at first, and like people just want them. So I just keep trying to make new fun designs. Like almost all my stuff, if you have something with stamping, I typically don't make it more than like 3 times. So it's kind of hard to always keep up with something new. But I'm just always trying to like find something. I don't like remaking things super often,
Dude, I'm
which is a
I'm dying
problem.
to get one of those alligator. Is it alligator, right?
Yeah, yeah, the Gator Boys. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, those look so cool to me. And I don't, you know, if you're going to have a really good sheath and spend some money, why not? You know, I mean, I just have so many, and like dumping that much into a sheath has got to come at the right moment when you're like, have that
yeah.
kind of money sitting aside and you're like, okay, I'll spend 200 or $250 for a sheath, you know? Um,
Yeah.
it's, they're beautiful though, man. I love, that's what,
You want to see how big a gator is?
yeah.
Yeah, check this out. Where's my box of Gator Boys? Yeah. So people want to know why they're so expensive. This is how big a full gator is, and only this is usable.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to get a burrito, it's pretty much this, and I can't really. I can maybe fit one more sheath down here at most. But desirable leather-wise is just right here, and this is a lot of money. So yeah, these are really small. People thought I was like gouging on them because you can buy really big hides, but they're just shit. These are like really like high-end brands use these. These are all like tagged and certified. And they're beautiful. But yeah, they're tiny. So if you want one, this is like if you ordered like a fold over, this is pretty much all yours because I can't do much after. Yeah, it's just a lot of scrap after that.
So what's with the shark leather and the horse ass leather?
Yeah, yeah. The shark leather was super cool actually. I a friend of mine loves sharks. And this is terrible. I was like, oh, like that's awesome. Like maybe I'll like make them like something cool for like a gift at a shark. And then I was like, that's a terrible fucking gift to give to somebody. It's like someone giving me like chinchilla gloves and I own chinchillas, you know? So but I was looking at it and it was like super cool stuff. So I picked up some and people just went nuts for it. They're like, I love shark leather all of a sudden. It's like the new big thing. So it's super cool. It's like really soft. It kind of looks like tree bark or elephant print on
Do
like
you have
Jordans,
those
you know?
posted on your Instagram?
Nothing right now. I just been doing custom orders. I actually haven't got around to like making pre-made ones.
Okay.
Um, and then I just been going nuts with the exotics. Like no one's really seen this yet, but this is beaver tail leather.
Oh, wow.
And this little section here was like barely big enough to make a sheath with, like barely. And it was like $35
Oh my.
for like just a front panel. And it's a nightmare to work with. Like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to actually finish this one. It's just so hard to work with. And then I got like python skin and then shell cordovan, which is horse ass. It's actually membrane. So like donkeys, zebras, horses, they all have these like nice shells in their butts. Kind of sounds weird. And they basically like remove it and then it's this membrane and it's like really unique. And they tan it. It's almost exclusively all done in like Italy and I think a little bit in China. And then they like gloss it and smooth the surface and they like typically like they do marbled shell. That's what I carry. And it's just if you've owned shell cordovan, it just feels weird. Like it's super like smooth and glossy. It doesn't crease. It's just some really awesome stuff. So I've been doing a lot of shell cordovan recently.
What's with the python you said? Or is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah, I got some like really wild looking python skins recently. I made a couple and posted them up and they sold out like instantly. But they took a long time to make because python's super thin and you can't burnish it. So the edges need to be painted to seal them all up. So painting those edges took forever because the python is so thin, but it's really strong. Like you don't have to worry about it ripping. It's super strong. But yeah, getting the edge paint to lay perfectly flat on the normal leather, which is a different stiffness than the python, took me like almost a week to get them all just painted. So I'm slowly like making a bunch of those, and I took on a few custom orders for those. And yeah, the python skin is just like super wild to work with.
Wow. And what about somebody's asking if you're going to make a neck knife sheath for Bali's anytime?
I'm gonna be honest, like if you want it, I guess I could make it, but I would just get a Kydex joint. If you have like anything from BRS, I think Blade HQ sells those, or just hit up a local Kydex person. But it would just be super bulky, and also like I guess if you want like a leather sheath around your neck and a knife, like I could maybe do it for you. But if you want it, DM me, but I won't be making one like otherwise.
So that would be you would wrap a piece of Kydex, or how would?
No, I would recommend going out to somebody else that does Kydex.
No,
yeah,
but
because
if you
leather
were
doesn't have that
if-
retention.
If you were going to do it, how would you do it?
I would start off by getting measurements of the knife. It would be a little bit of money because I'd have to make a pattern by scratch. But I would do a pretty tight squeeze in like a thinner leather and then just kind of have it sit in there. So it'd be like a normal sheath, but thinner. And you would just kind of plop it in, and then it would have, you know, an area for the cord to go around. You can't really like a lot of neck
So
like
it wouldn't
slips and
hang
stuff like that.
upside down. It would be
No, it would just fall off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering. Yeah. Like Ryeworks makes one for their for one of their Bali. I forget the name of their Bali now off the top of my head. Oh God, somebody help me here. Anyways, can't remember the name, but somebody knows what I'm talking about out there. Sensua or whatever, is right? Isn't that what it's called? Something like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
I have no idea. Yeah.
Well, geez, I got to start packing for Blade Show, and if there's any other questions that Setsuna, yeah, that's the one I'm talking about, the Setsuna. Yeah, I used to have one, and I'm actually going to be getting some in shop Soet after Blade Show at some point.
Oh, that's what's up. Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, you guys, I'm going to be doing a giveaway with one of these shirts, and it's the Damn Right I Got Knives shirt. I just picked them up today. I'll have them at Blade Show at table 32K, right next to JK and Joseph Hansen and across from Squid.
There you go.
It's going to be fun. Yeah, we're going to have a great time. It's going to be so fun. I wish you were coming out there. You should definitely think about coming sometime. I know your presence would be welcomed and be awesome.
Yeah, I got to think about it. Maybe I'll take a flight out next show and just hang out.
Exactly.
See everybody.
Yeah.
Going incognito.
I think so. I'm all for that. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us, and super awesome work, man. Really, really impressive. And thank you for getting me this beautiful knife. I love it. And
yeah, for sure.
It's staying in the collection for sure. Definitely. All right.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, man. It's cool getting to talk about it and hopefully maybe give some insight. I'm always like super quiet about like what goes on behind the scenes because I'm just like, this is what I do. But people are like, I didn't know you hand stitch things. I'm like, yeah, I do. I should probably say that more often.
It was hand stitched. I pictured, some sort of machine. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. All done by hand. I need to start doing that more. Yeah, I like kind of just, I don't know. I'm not a big social media guy, so I just kind of like post whenever I really have to, but I just rely on like DMs and like, I don't know. I should probably give more insight. My friends are like, you should do a TikTok or something and like show behind the scenes, Like I always have people in the forums being like, how do you like put those textures on and stuff? And I'm like, I thought people knew that. I guess not. I should probably start sharing it because it looks cooler that way.
Because I got a couple sheaths from JK. Do you put them in plastic and put the little, because he puts them in, I don't know if you do that part of it, like staple on the top and put it in the plastic, or is that something he did?
Yeah, that's all him. Those are from his old bottle openers and stuff. He used to like, that's why he has his older logo. Yeah, so he does that. Normally I put them in a bag too, and then like I have a box with like crinkle paper, and then that's how I ship mine.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so if you did something, you would get them in a bag, but they won't be stapled at the top. But if people want extra packaging or something, like I'm always down to work with people with whatever. So
Well, I keep tempting myself to get a really nice one from you, and I think it's going to probably happen eventually here, because every time I start saying it too much, it's on my mind too much, and then I find myself buying one. Whether it's a knife or something, it's like something I can't let go of until I do it.
yeah, you should buy a sheath for every knife you have, and that way I can retire.
Nice try, man. Nice try.
Yeah, yeah. That's a crazy collection. Like that's some like hardcore budgeting. Is there like marriage counseling in that budget as well?
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of knives. Like,
Well, luckily, my wife is pretty cool with it, being that we have a shop and we sell knives, and it's part of our business. But it's definitely like a big part of my passion too. So but then again, it's kind of works for her, because when she wants something, she can be like, "You bought that knife."
yeah,
So
yeah. She's like, you better be going to Jared's for Christmas,
when
Paul.
she wants something, I'm just like, "Yeah, go ahead and get it." Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, I want a Tesla. You're like, you know what? I'll sell a few Monarchs, man.
A lot of what I do though is I have invested a lot, but I've kind of like will sell certain ones that aren't working for me anymore, and then so there's a lot of turnover. And then I separate money that I get, like anything that happens from the shop sales and anything like that definitely goes into like taking care of bills in our shop. And I don't, this money comes from like selling weird music instruments or like other things I have, and then reinvesting it, and that kind of game that
Yeah.
you play with being a collector. So there's some madness to it, but somehow I make it work and keep my collection going.
Dude, that's good for you. You found a great wife if she's still with you with that many knives, man.
She definitely puts up with me for sure.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
very lucky
awesome.
with that. She's even learned the basic open, so that's kind of cool.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. What's her favorite knife? Does she have one she really likes?
Um, no, she starts saying, now I have so many, she's like, they all look the same. So that's her thing. But she can tend to like pick out, like I can say like, can you get me a inked Kraken black? And she knows what I'm talking about. Like when were fulfilling
Yeah.
orders, she'll know like different things, like, you know, the shape of things, if it's a Bowie or a Tanto, she knows certain things like that. So, but that's
Yeah.
mostly because we're working together. We fulfill orders together. We work in the shop together. And, she does a lot of our back end work. So she'll know the products we're ordering for the shop. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's super cool. Our shop is filled with, in the same rate, she makes me learn about like clothing I would never care about learning about. Like she'll be like, you got to put that in the system the right way. I'm like, okay, this is like some blue jean, bell bottom blue jeans. I mean, I don't even know. I'm horrible at it. It's like,
You're like
even like me.
Satchel.
She doesn't even like me like dealing with the clothes, but I do sell them when she's not around. I'll have to help the customer.
Yeah. Your shop must be like a trip because you have like musical stuff, Balisongs, and like clothing. Like,
Yeah, and we manage the Airbnb for the hotel. So like hotel guests will walk in and they'll just be like, what kind of front desk is this?
yeah.
So
Yeah. Some kids is flipping a knife in the corner, You're like, okay, what's going on here?
well, once we explain to people, it's like, the shop, it's pretty, we were trying to sell things we weren't into, and there's maybe a lingering of some of those things. But then we got to this point where like, let's only sell things that we really like,
Yeah.
and things we know about. So of course I was going to sell music, vinyl turntables, and knives. You know, I'm really into knives, things I collect and I know about. And she does, and that's what she does on her side, whether it's jewelry or clothing. And then I do all the woodwork in there, and I display all that for people to see and commission me to make things. So that's basically what our shop is what we're into. It makes it really easy for us to talk about it, know about it, research it, you know, get passionate about it, rather than if it's just some crappy thing we could give a crap we don't care about, you know.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like you might be able to make more money selling something like, you know, maybe, but like if you love what you're doing, like that's the key, right?
For
Just
sure.
follow what you love. It's like life is so short, man. Like you're lucky if you get, you know, a short life at that, you know? So don't just sit there like pushing crab hammers all day, you know? Like if you like music and knives, like sell freaking music and knives, man, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy, you know, like most. Yeah, yeah. My wife used to work for a law firm before she quit and started doing the hotel and shop full time. And she was like, "How do you live like this? Like, you never know. Like, I've never had a salary job, and I've always lived. I'm 51 years old, and I've lived my whole life just going forward and believing in a project and believing in a concept of like making something work. You know, other people really like the
Yeah.
security of a full time job and the salary. It takes some getting used to for sure when you come out of that corporate world to like this world of, I don't know, what do you call freedom or something? I don't know.
Yeah, it's extreme accountability, right? Like if you don't want to, like if you don't work or keep up to date, like the money doesn't really come in, you know?
Yeah,
And there's like not a lot of security in that sometimes, but that freedom is like, it's tough, you know, to beat that once you taste it, to go back to like a normal job where you're just working for somebody or you got like a shitty manager because
right.
apparently good managers just don't exist. I don't know anyone that's like, I love my manager. He's the best, you know?
Yeah.
So,
You definitely
yeah,
got to hustle
that's
when you're
awesome.
self-employed and doing stuff. You got to like, you know, it doesn't happen if you just sit around, like you said. You know, you got to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I tell my friends. I was talking to my friends the other day and I was like, he was like complaining about his job and he was like, "Oh, you got it easy." And I was like, "Dude, there's days where like I might not rake in like any money for a while, or like if something gets messed up, right? Like right now I'm dealing with something with a project I'm working on, and I'm like, that's gonna take 3 months to deal with. Like that's almost a quarter, right? Like that's not great, you know? And like it's tricky. That's why like I'm always working on stuff, and that's why I don't talk about things too, because you don't want to get people's hopes up right
Yeah,
when you're releasing products, and then it never come to fruition because it takes time. Like there's a bunch of projects that I was working on that I just had to put in the back burner,
yeah.
you know, just because I just couldn't get them done
Product
anymore. Yeah,
project management, yeah, for sure. You got, you know, and you got to kind of have things stacked up. So like when this thing can't suddenly stops, you can like move this in its place, and then when that stops, you can kind of take this over there. So you're constantly. That's why I say I have like six things I'm doing, and like, you know, when somebody orders a table from me, I tell them, I'm like, it could be 3 months, it could be a month. You know, I don't know when it's going to
yeah,
be done. You know, so.
yeah.
It's,
No, that's it's true. I just yeah, I keep that's what I like about the knives actually. Is like I pay extra to get them finished and stuff by him, but I can sit down like work on like 10 of them and then do like a story lotto, and I can take off like 2 3 weeks if I want and like start working on new designs and projects and just like live life, you know, for a bit and then come back when I want, you know. So you can work really, really, really hard, take some time off, or you can just keep grinding nonstop if you want, you know. It's I like that freedom
yeah,
for sure.
totally. Well, man, it's been really nice talking, super awesome, and I hope to meet you in person sometime. And I'll be hitting you up at some point, and I'll be posting this interview on YouTube as well, probably after Blade Show because I'm not going to have time to get it. It'll be up on Instagram in the meantime, and YouTube probably after I get back from Atlanta. And
Yeah. Awesome.
appreciate you and everybody for watching. Um, check out Area 51 projects work. And that anybody who just hopped on, here's the new Soet and Damn Right I Got Knives shirt. I have hoodies, t-shirts, and long sleeve shirts.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, man. I appreciate you taking the
Yeah.
time and for being so cool about us having to reschedule and everything that went on with that,
Oh,
like
yeah.
you mentioned.
No problem, man. That's some serious stuff. So I'm glad it's getting better, man. So really appreciate it. So thanks so much.
Of course, man. Take it easy, you guys, and I'll see you at Blade Show. Adios, amigos.